Have you ever witnessed someone who commands respect without uttering a word? They don't plead, they don't demand attention, they simply withdraw, and suddenly everything shifts, the atmosphere transforms, people begin to question, to pursue, to experience a strange unease. Now imagine yourself embracing this same approach. What if you pause before responding to every stimulus? What if you chose calculated silence over immediate reaction, deliberate retreat instead of emotional explosion? The answer lies in this profound truth. When you cease being perpetually available, emotionally, physically, psychologically, your environment experiences a disruption because others have grown accustomed to controlling you through your predictable patterns, your reflexive responses, your emotional accessibility. But the moment you choose strategic withdrawal, you rewrite the rules. Those who believed they understood you suddenly realize they comprehend nothing at all. As Carl Jung insightfully observed, everything that irritates us about others can lead us to a better understanding of ourselves. Consider this deeply. When you become temporarily inaccessible, who truly becomes unsettled? Who grows irritated? Who attempts to provoke you merely to extract an emotional response? These reactions reveal far more about others than they do about you. More significantly, they expose how subtly you've been manipulated without your awareness. You continuously give pieces of yourself to please, to maintain harmony, to retain relationships with people who, in truth, were never genuinely present for you. With each forced agreement, each instant response, each emotional reaction, you surrender fragments of your vital energy, and what remains at day's end? Exhaustion, frustration, an inexplicable emptiness. The reason is clear. You've made yourself too accessible to those who haven't earned even a moment of your sacred silence. This isn't about turning away from meaningful connection. It's about choosing yourself first. It's about embracing what Jung termed individuation, the journey toward becoming whole, authentic, complete. This transformation begins when you recognize that silence can speak more powerfully than countless arguments. That withdrawal, when stemming from conscious awareness rather than avoidance, represents an act of personal sovereignty. So I ask you directly, how much longer will you allow yourself to be governed by others' emotional states? How long will you react like a marionette whenever someone touches your vulnerabilities? Perhaps the time has come to sever those strings, to step back, to become beautifully enigmatic. Because when you stop being endlessly available, everything transforms. The prison of perpetual availability. Society has conditioned you since childhood to remain constantly present, to respond promptly, to accommodate, to affirm even when your heart whispers denial. You've been programmed to believe your worth is measured by your availability to others. Here's a truth perhaps no one has articulated with such clarity. This excessive accessibility isn't virtue, it's captivity. As long as you persist in believing you must remain perpetually available, emotionally or otherwise, you will continue to be manipulated, depleted, and discarded once your utility expires. Why? Because constant availability renders you predictable, and anything predictable becomes instrumentalized. People begin treating you as an emotional emergency resource, activating you when requiring attention, validation, or comfort, then shelving you until the next need arises. This pattern escapes your notice because you're entrapped in the illusion that universal availability will eventually earn you someone's genuine presence. Life doesn't operate by such equations. Jung spoke of the persona, the mask we don each day to gain acceptance, love, recognition. This very mask keeps you excessively accessible. You express contentment while inwardly suffocating. You respond to messages instantly despite exhaustion. You explain, justify, and defend yourself as though indebted to the world. The truth reveals itself. The more centrally you position yourself on others' stages, the more you vanish from your own. constant availability represents a subtle form of self-abandonment, a disguised pursuit of approval, an avoidance of rejection, an attempt to control others' perceptions of you. This control exacts a price, your inner peace. It's your vital energy distributed as though infinite when it remains profoundly limited. Those demanding your constant accessibility don't truly want you. They desire what you provide: validation, companionship, distraction, emotional comfort. When you establish boundaries, when you decline to react, these same individuals grow agitated, critical, judgmental. Not because you've changed, but because you've ceased functioning as their emotional utility. Here lies the harshest truth. The more available you remain, the less value others assign you. What exists in abundance becomes emotionally disposable. No one respects what requires no effort to obtain. No one treasures what remains perpetually accessible. Pause now and reflect. Who genuinely deserves your time, your attention, your presence, your listening, or perhaps more crucially, who deserves your absence? The expenditure of psychic energy. Before answering, we must understand one essential question. Why do we react so readily? Why do we yield so effortlessly? What drives this almost automatic compulsion to respond, justify, and please? The answer resides in what Jung called psychic energy, your most precious resource. If you fail to safeguard it, someone will inevitably weaponize it against you. Jung didn't view the human psyche as a mechanical system responding automatically to stimuli without consequence. He recognized our minds as energy systems where every thought, emotion, and action consumes a portion of our finite inner resources. The critical question becomes, are you consciously directing where your energy flows, or are you permitting external forces to decide for you? Each impulsive reaction wastes psychic energy, defending against criticism that merits no attention, responding to provocations merely to validate yourself, engaging in purposeless debates, striving to please those who offer no appreciation. You expend your inner strength on endeavours that provide no nourishment. Jung observed clearly, that which you resist persists. The more you react, the more deeply you bind yourself. Those experiencing chronic emotional depletion aren't weak. They're misdirected. And what happens to someone living in perpetual exhaustion? They become vulnerable. When vulnerability takes hold, you transform into easy prey. Manipulative, opportunistic, and emotionally needy individuals sense this instinctively. They perceive your inability to conserve energy, your tendency to react to everything, your constant attempts to resolve everyone's problems, and they exploit these tendencies mercilessly. Jung maintained that a healthy psyche knows how to contain energy within its system. This means declining requests without guilt, remaining silent without feeling cowardly, observing situations before acting. True power resides not in reaction, but in choosing when and how to engage. This becomes possible only when you understand yourself deeply enough to recognize your own impulses. How often have you sacrificed sleep over unresolved conversations? How many hours have you spent ruminating over what you should have said, or attempting to comprehend someone's poor treatment of you? This represents energy draining without return, keeping alive ghosts that should have been laid to rest long ago, feeding dynamics that persist solely because you continue responding. Psychic energy resembles a force field. When properly maintained, it creates a commanding presence. You enter a room and command respect without speaking a word. When poorly managed, you become invisible, reactive, fragile, and the world shows no mercy to those who yield easily. Begin observing your emotional triggers. What provokes automatic reactions? What disrupts your center? These precise points where energy escapes require your focused attention, not to become cold or indifferent, but to become selective, sovereign over yourself. Breaking the cycle of projection. Jung offered a profound revelation. When you conserve your energy, you disrupt the projections others place upon you. This creates discomfort because we now enter shadowy territory. that of silent manipulation. Most believe their emotional responses represent conscious choices, but a darker truth exists. Many reactions follow programmed patterns. Those who understand this manipulate you effortlessly. Opportunistic individuals need not raise their voices, threaten, or force situations. They simply activate the triggers you've left exposed and you react predictably. Jung identified projection as the psychological mechanism through which people attribute to others what they cannot recognize within themselves. Yet another dimension of this phenomenon receives less attention. While others project onto you, you simultaneously become the receptacle for these projections. The more emotionally available you remain, the more you transform into a blank canvas for others' projected images. Consider that friend who contacts you only during personal crises, that partner who perpetually needs rescuing, that person who praises you conditional upon your usefulness. None occurs accidentally. They aren't relating to you but to their idea of you, to the role you've agreed to fulfill. And why do you agree? Because you fear disappointing others, fear losing love, fear abandonment. The most effective manipulation occurs not through shouting but through the silence of guilt. When you feel indebted to others, when you believe you must remain available, must help, must understand, even as it destroys your inner world. The manipulator need not control you directly. They need only ensure you continue reacting predictably. When you cease reacting, the dynamic fractures. When you begin saying no, responding with silence, withdrawing rather than explaining yourself, the projections begin disintegrating. The mask they've placed upon you falls away. This creates profound disorientation because they no longer recognize who you are. Worse still, they now face themselves, a confrontation many remain unprepared to experience. Your unavailability threatens because it forces others to confront their own emptiness. The silence you offer exposes the internal noise they resist hearing. Then come the attacks, criticisms, emotional dramas, not because you've erred, but because you've stopped serving as their convenient mirror. Jung noted, "We do not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious." When you withdraw, when you cease feeding the cycle, others' shadows begin emerging, unbearable for those who have always used you as escape. But what about you? Are you prepared to endure being misunderstood, rejected, even attacked for protecting yourself? Are you ready to withstand the silence following rupture? For within that silence, a new form of power awakens. The devastating power of strategic silence. Modern society thrives on noise. Everyone seeks to be heard, to respond swiftly, to triumph in pointless debates, to validate their perspectives, even at the cost of inner peace. Yet a power exists that few recognize and fewer master. The power of silence. Not passive or cowardly silence, but conscious, strategic, brutally lucid silence. Not absence, but amplified presence. Jung viewed silence not as emptiness, but as fertile ground for inner transformation. When you stop reacting, you begin observing. Through observation, you discern patterns previously unnoticed. Emotional repetitions, manipulation tactics, cycles of self-sabotage. Silence enables lucidity, and lucidity endangers those who live to control you. Have you noticed how certain individuals panic when you don't respond? When you offer no explanations, when you simply disappear? This occurs not because they miss you, but because your silence strips away their narrative control. While speaking, you remain within their game. In silence, you change the rules, destabilizing anyone who thrives on your reactions. True silence transcends vocal absence. It represents mastery over personal energy, refusal to be drawn into others' emotional states, conscious choice to avoid battles unworthy of your engagement. Jung believed individuation, becoming your authentic self, requires this distancing because only in silence can you hear yourself without external interference. Silence exacts a price. It distances you from those who valued you only for your role, renders you incomprehensible to those who viewed you through their projections, makes you appear cold, distant, arrogant. These reactions come from those who never sought your depth, only your utility. The harsh truth remains. As you mature, you become increasingly selective with your words, understanding each sentence represents an energetic investment, and not everyone deserves access to your truth. Sometimes silence isn't retreat, it's sovereignty, the language of those who no longer need external validation. Silence creates discomfort by forcing others to confront their thoughts, their internal noise, and this discomfort reveals more about them than any argument could expose. Your absence requires no explanation. It speaks for itself. Those threatened by it reveal how deeply they depended on your imbalance to maintain their control. Yet the most powerful silence isn't that which disturbs others, but that which rebuilds you internally, connecting you to something beyond external approval. Within this internal space, free from others' demands, you begin reclaiming vital energy, reconnecting with your essence. The practice of conscious unavailability. It's insufficient to merely eliminate external noise. You must relearn conscious energy management, choosing where your energy flows, where it remains, and most importantly, where it should never be wasted. Learn selectivity with your own soul. Intellectual understanding means nothing if practically you continue affirming when you wish to decline, responding to disturbing messages, participating in empty conversations, maintaining relationships existing purely through inertia. Awareness without action becomes self-deception. True transformation begins with firmly deciding to become selective, requiring emotional discipline. Conscious unavailability isn't coldness, arrogance, or indifference. It means refusing universal accessibility at others' convenience. It means controlling your energy, time, and peace through small actions, delayed responses, breathing before reacting, leaving discussions before chaos erupts, turning off devices without guilt, saying, "Not today, I'm not interested, I won't get involved." Most crucially, you need not justify your absence or explain your silence. You owe nothing to anyone but yourself. For many, this remains unforgivable. When you refuse explanations, you remove others' power to keep you trapped within an emotional narrative where you remain perpetually helpful, understanding, accessible. Jung understood every individuation process involves isolation, not depressive isolation, but sacred withdrawal, an inner retreat where you relearn hearing your own voice without worldly interference, rebuilding identity not from others' perceptions but from your center. Want a measure of your evolution? Observe who distances themselves when you grow more reserved. Notice who provokes you when you stop reacting. Watch who accuses you of changing when you finally establish protection. These aren't signs of error but proof of liberation. Initial unavailability creates discomfort. You'll feel guilty, selfish, harsh. This forms part of deconstruction. Having spent your life conditioned to place yourself second, change naturally creates discomfort, both internally and in everyone benefiting from your previous patterns. Conscious unavailability forms the foundation of self-determination. Declining the world means affirming yourself. Withdrawing from toxic environments reconfirms your peace-out values, false connection. Ceasing explanations begins attracting respect, though from fewer sources. Not everyone stands ready for such presence. Your emotional absence exposes wounds they resist facing, revealing their dependence on your emotional chaos for control. This triggers rupture, bringing pain, loneliness, estrangement, feeling of loss when actually experiencing liberation. The sacred solitude of the strong. When you cease universal availability, profound transformation begins. First comes uncomfortable silence seemingly screaming inside you. You question your choices, your harshness, potential relationship losses. Gradually, this silence transforms, cleansing, calming, healing. Then comes solitude. Not absence, but total self-presence. The solitude of strength, of refusing self-betrayal to maintain proximity. In spaces once filled with confusion enters clarity. Where anxiety ruled, peace arrives. Where neediness dominated, new strength emerges, the strength of internal wholeness. Jung believed individuation requires distancing from collective consciousness, removing masks, temporary solitary journeying. This exactly describes choosing unavailability, not fleeing connection, but returning to self. Here you transform from reactor to creator, ceasing to be shaped by circumstances and beginning to form reality from within. Those uncomfortable with your absence reveal they never wanted you, only your role. This liberates. You will lose people but find yourself. You'll leave places but reconnect with essence. You'll be misunderstood but finally respected. When no longer universally available, you become valuable, rare, unforgettable. This represents rebirth, beginning a life where you refuse emotional fragments, mind games, emptiness disguised as affection. Now you accept only what resonates with your peace, truth, and wholeness. If you've read this far, part of you stands ready for this path, understanding that being loved means nothing if requiring self-abandonment, that true self-love begins with self-selection, even temporarily facing solitude. The courage to withdraw. The journey toward conscious unavailability demands courage, not the brash courage of confrontation, but the quiet courage of standing alone. It requires faith in your intrinsic worth beyond your usefulness to others. It demands trust in the process of becoming, even when that process feels uncertain. Every time you exercise strategic withdrawal, you strengthen this muscle. Every time you choose silence over unnecessary explanation, you reclaim power. Every time you prioritize your peace over others' comfort, you affirm your sovereignty. These seemingly small actions accumulate, gradually transforming your relationship with yourself and consequently with the world. Remember that your energy is sacred, a finite resource that replenishes only through conscious protection. Each interaction, each relationship, each commitment either drains or nourishes this resource. Choose wisely where your energy flows. Learn to recognize the subtle ways you leak power through unconscious habits of people-pleasing, over-explaining, premature responding. Conscious unavailability becomes revolutionary in a world that demands constant connection, immediate responses, perpetual presence. By refusing to participate in this frenetic exchange, you create space for depth, for meaning, for authenticity. You discover that true connection flourishes not through constant accessibility, but through meaningful presence, quality over quantity, depth over frequency. As you practice strategic withdrawal, you'll notice an interesting paradox. The more selectively available you become, the more genuinely present you are when you choose to engage. Your interactions gain depth, clarity, and purpose. You bring your whole self rather than fragmented attention. You speak with intention rather than reaction. You listen with presence rather than with half your mind already formulating responses. This journey toward conscious unavailability transforms not just your relationships, but your entire experience of life. You stop living reactively and begin living intentionally. You cease being a character in others' narratives and become the author of your own story. You no longer derive identity from others' perceptions, but from your internal compass. Are you prepared to be misunderstood, rejected, even disliked in exchange for inner freedom? Will you pay the price of authentic selfhood? If this message resonates, affirm, I choose my peace. The rebirth through withdrawal. The final stage of this journey brings unexpected gifts. As you master conscious unavailability, you discover genuine availability, the capacity to be truly present by choice rather than compulsion. You learn to give from abundance rather than scarcity, from strength rather than need, from clarity rather than confusion. Your relationships transform from unconscious entanglements to conscious connections. Those who remain in your life value your authentic presence rather than your utility. Those who enter recognize and respect your boundaries from the beginning. You attract what resonates with your truth rather than what exploits your weaknesses. Most profoundly, you discover that the ultimate purpose of withdrawal isn't permanent isolation but temporary recalibration, creating space to reconnect with yourself before engaging with the world. Strategic unavailability becomes not an end but a means, a pathway to genuine presence, authentic connection, and purposeful engagement. In this space of conscious choice, you discover what Jung called individuation, becoming wholly, uniquely yourself while simultaneously connecting meaningfully with others. You learn that boundaries and connection aren't opposites but complementary forces. You understand that saying no to what depletes you creates capacity to say yes to what nourishes you. The journey begins with withdrawal but culminates in return, not to old patterns of reactivity, but to new possibilities of conscious engagement, not to compulsive availability, but to intentional presence, not to emotional captivity, but to authentic liberty. The question remains, are you ready to begin this journey? Are you prepared to withdraw strategically, to embrace the discomfort of temporary isolation, to endure the accusations of selfishness, to withstand the pressure to return to old patterns? Are you willing to believe that your peace matters more than others' comfort with your predictability? If so, take the first step today. Practice conscious unavailability in one small area. Delay a response that would normally be immediate. Choose silence where you would typically defend. Withdraw from a situation that consistently depletes you. Observe what happens, not just externally but internally. Notice how your energy shifts, how your clarity increases, how your sovereignty strengthens. This journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single act of conscious withdrawal. The path may not be easy, but the destination, authentic selfhood, genuine connection, intentional living, makes every step worthwhile. Choose your peace today. The world will adjust tomorrow.